Well, I've got it fitted loosely in place. I cut a little slit in that spot. I X'd out a slit where the map light goes, and I've got everything kind of in place where the plastic headliner frame is lined up with the edges of the T-top cutout. So you can see if I lift that up, it all fits evenly on both sides. And then in here, I know it's gonna be dark, but I've got it folded up inside around the trim so that it's being held up in place. And then I've got my mirror turned so it sits up on top of that, so I don't put a bend or a kink in the plastic. So with it in its general spot, I'm now going to outline a line a couple inches all the way around, and there's a lot of extra material on all sides of this, so a lot of that I need to trim off. I don't need near that much material hanging out the edges of the ABS frame. So we'll take it back out once I get my lines marked and do a lot of trimming here. I'm gonna take a piece of paper and kind of put it down inside the channel to the bottom, and then I'm gonna put a crease in it and go down to the bottom there. So that'll represent how much material I want left over. So then I laid it up against here, gave me just a little bit more than that, made a mark. And then I can connect the lines and then cut out that piece in the middle. And just like that, now I'll go do the other side. So we've got the little spots for where the screw that holds the mirror clip. Then on the corners, we got where the mirror is screwed in itself. I'm gonna trim some of this out, because if we fold it over, then there's not gonna be enough room to get the light to clip in place, so I need to remove some of that. This one is already pre-cut out. And then I gotta trim this, and then I'm gonna trim some of the edges all the way around the perimeter. And you don't want this thing jerking around on you and get off your line. Well, the headliner's in. I've got it all trimmed up. I've got the mirrors screwed in place and the lights in place to get everything up tight as it's going to be against the roof. It is 70, 71 in here. I've had the heat going all day. The can says 65 is the lowest temperature I can use it in, so I should be good there. And I've got everything masked off now for the spray adhesive. I've just used some moving blankets, and I've used some plastic taped all over. I don't want any overspray getting anywhere that's not supposed to be. You hold the can pretty close anyway, and it doesn't have a fine mist that goes everywhere, but in the few inches around, it's definitely going to get on stuff. So that's why I've got everything masked. This is just some of that sticky backed plastic for like walking on floors that you don't want to get dirty, and so I just pushed it up, a piece of it around the headliner. It'll just stick there until I'm ready to peel it off. So yeah, we're gonna get a few coats on there, let it tack up for just a couple minutes, and start making our cuts in the corners and start folding it up over this lip right here. So get adhesive on the metal and on the backing both, and go both directions with some spray patterns, and we'll be good to go. Well, I've got 2 good coats. I've went both directions, waited about 30 seconds in between the 2 coats. Now I'm gonna let it sit up a couple minutes just as I peel away all the plastic and everything. I don't need to keep all that on there, and I'm gonna need to remove this in the middle to start getting it folded up. So it's a pretty quick tack time, but just enough to get all this pulled away, and then we'll get started. Now I've tried to just make a couple of cuts in the corner instead of a bunch of them. Inside, I think it's gonna look fine. There's really no wrinkles that I can't get out from a little massaging. But once you lay this stuff down, there's no peeling it back and trying it again for this headliner anyway. This one has a foam backing, and the foam just comes right off if you try to pull it back. So I learned that right here. If you just use regular vinyl and do headliner yourself, it's pretty easy to just pull it back and try to reposition it. But with this TMI foam backed vinyl, you get really one shot. Make sure you have a really bright light inside so you can see as you're going. And yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's get the other corner quick. Now, how I've done it, and I'm no expert, I've only done this once before, but I cut a slit kind of where the curve starts on each end, and I pulled out tight and lifted up on the long straightaways and only adhered it to the side. I haven't pushed it down in yet. I did the same thing on the other side, just pulled out tight and up to get it on this edge, and now I'm gonna start to fill these, pull these back in the corners, see if I need to make my cuts a little further. Just be careful not to cut too far down or you'll see those cuts. Ask me how I know. Okay, I started with that corner and I folded the pieces back behind up against the edge and got them clamped down. So as you start to fold these over, make sure you try to get them back against this edge with the adhesive as best you can. And what I've been doing is taking the leg of one of these and pushing it as I lay it down, pushing it up tight up against this so there's no air gaps in there to get a good bite with your adhesive, and then clamp them up. And I just run this along there a few times, and now we'll get them clamped up. And we'll leave the clamped up for an hour, probably a little less, and start taking those off, and then we'll start trimming all the excess down in that channel with a razor blade. Each time you cut these, whether it's just a few cuts on one side, you come over to the other, I suggest you just get a new blade or flip it to the other end. Don't risk something getting dull and tearing up your headliner. Now, I definitely am not real happy with that corner. I don't think it'll look bad once everything's put back together, but I made an extra cut over here, so 4 cuts instead of 3, and that definitely helped in my opinion. So once we get all the clamps off, we'll take a look at it. Okay, so now I'm gonna take a fresh blade and trim up against this corner down here all the way around, and we'll pull off the excess, get our trim on. See, you got a little bit of foam from the foam backing to clean up, but the weather strip trim goes, or rubber weather seal goes down here, and that'll all be hidden. So. Well, everyone, I'm to a point where I can show off this new headliner. It's a TMI vinyl. Everything back inside now that connects right up against it. And I've got the trim panel, the clothes hanger hook, got one of the T-tops in over there to show it, got the visors, the lights, and I'm really happy with the look. It is got a foam backer on it, so it's got kind of a plush feel, but if you let go, it doesn't leave any marks, but it's soft to the touch. Everything wrapped up around the cutout pretty well. Got the trim in the front, and yeah, it just looks really good, and it's going to match my door panels and my seats great because they're the same black TMI material, or at least they have inserts of this type of material.